Welcome back, brothers. You're watching another episode of That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime recaps, only on AniMonolith. Picking up right where we left off, the red-haired demon lord himself, Guy Crimson, has finally arrived in Tempest. But judging by the look on his face, he's not thrilled to be here. Rimuru had no choice but to put him in the VIP lounge. All other guest rooms were occupied, and Guy was definitely not the type you want to let near fragile or expensive furniture. One tantrum, and the decor budget would be toast. Not long after, Rimuru entered the room, flanked by Benimaru, Shion, and of course, the walking chaos that summoned Guy in the first place, Diablo. Guy didn't come alone. With him were Rain, Misery, and a mysterious girl with white hair and sapphire blue eyes, someone who looked like a younger, more elegant version of Milim. Rimuru was immediately on guard. This girl wasn't Guy's subordinate. No, their relationship felt equal, which coming from Guy Crimson meant one thing: she was a monster. As expected, Guy introduced her. This is Velzard, Veldora's sister, also known as the Frost Dragon. She greeted Rimuru politely. "Nice to meet you, Demon Lord Rimuru. I heard you've been taking care of my brother." And just like that, cold sweat. Rimuru was face to face with one of the strongest beings in existence, and she didn't even leak an ounce of Yuki. Compared to Veldora, who only recently learned to suppress his aura, Velzard was in a completely different league. Her control was so perfect, Rimuru might have mistaken her for a regular human if he hadn't been told otherwise. Even worse, she was cute, like dangerously cute. Her smile could melt glaciers or countries. After that came the formal introductions. Guy presented Rain and Misery, both primordials like Diablo. Once the greetings were done, Rimuru poured tea, with a little help from Shuna, and got to the point. Rimuru confronted Guy directly. "You knew Velgrind was in the Empire, didn't you? Why didn't you tell me?" Guy grinned like he was enjoying every second. "Oh, you noticed, huh? Since you're aware of the setup, I'll explain." Turns out, Guy had made a bet. He and Emperor Rudra were playing a game, not with their own strength, but through their chosen pawns. The goal? Outmaneuver and overpower each other's forces without ever stepping in themselves. It was a battle of influence, strategy, and manipulation. "And who are your pawns?" Rimuru asked, already dreading the answer. Guy smiled. "You." Yes. Rimuru and his crew were now part of this twisted chess match between two entities standing on top of the world. Benimaru spoke up and asked the key question: "What are the win conditions?" Guy didn't answer directly. Instead, he walked behind Rimuru, put a hand on his shoulder, and said, "I want you to stop that bastard Rudra. You don't have to beat him, just take care of his pieces. Make sure I win." Rimuru, always quick with a comeback, asked, "And what do I get out of this?" But Guy wasn't having it. He leaned in and reminded Rimuru that he was the one who disrupted the balance of the world by recruiting the three primordials, Testarossa, Ultima, and Carrera. "You tilted the board. You owe me." In the end, Rimuru didn't have much choice. Either he played along and supported Guy's win condition, or risk being seen as a rival. So he agreed. And with that, the conversation entered Phase 2. After foreplay, Guy Crimson didn't waste any time. He straight up asked Rimuru for help in his long-running game against Emperor Rudra. Now, Rimuru agreed not because he wasn't scared of Guy, okay, maybe a little scared, but more because he simply couldn't ignore the Empire's crimes. Colonization, slaughtering the innocent, it's not something Rimuru could ever turn a blind eye to. The Demon Lord of Tempest might respect power, but he wasn't about to betray his own principles. Just as Guy backed off from his awkward shoulder squeezing, Shuna entered the room with tea and cake. Velzard praised the dessert, and even Guy complimented the room's interior. That surprised Rimuru. For a so-called tyrant, Guy seemed to have a refined taste. Maybe he was more cultured than he let on. Still, Rimuru needed answers. What exactly was this game between Guy and Rudra? Without hiding anything, Guy explained. This had been going on for 2,000 years, a high-stakes world-scale game of chess where the two couldn't fight directly but were free to eliminate each other's pawns. Not even the other demon lords in Octagram knew about it, not even Milim. Guy's goal? Awaken more demon lords. Rudra's? Create more saints. That's why sacrificing 1,000,000 troops made sense to Rudra. It was all part of pushing the worthy toward awakening. And now, thanks to Rimuru, none of the Empire's forces had made it back alive. For the first time, Rudra came out of a campaign with 0 awakenings. That stunned even Guy. Rimuru, trying not to focus on the fact that he was being treated like a pawn, shifted the topic. He asked the big question. Was it true Rudra could grant ultimate skills to others? Guy confirmed it, but brushed it off as nothing serious. The power Rudra lent out was limited and degraded. Only awakened beings could even receive it. Those who acted as vessels for the borrowed skills were strong, sure, but they weren't invincible. This, Guy said, was how the Empire produced monsters like the single digits. Of course, Guy explained all this while casually eating cake like it was no big deal, which irritated Rimuru. You're asking me to help you and you can't even give me the full picture? If Rimuru could beat him, he might have dropkicked him back through the dimensional gate already. Still, the mood grew quiet. The conversation was clearly wrapping up. Guy had said his piece. Guy wasn't in any hurry to leave. Instead, he started praising Shuna's skills and then casually asked if Mizeri and Rain could be trained in her pastry making. A seemingly innocent request, but Rimuru, ever the strategist, knew better. Skills don't come for free. Either you pay for the recipe or trade something of equal value. Still, Guy asked with such nonchalance that Rimuru decided. Only Tempest-developed recipes would be shared, not Shuna's own secret techniques. The real reason Rimuru agreed? Stability and economy. If Guy values Tempest's skills, he's less likely to bully them, and skilled baking can boost trade and security. Rimuru rarely gives freebies, but he saw the broader benefits. Win-win. Just as Rimuru was marshalling his departure, Guy suddenly asked, why did Diablo evolve? It wasn't just Diablo. Multiple true demon lords had awakened inside the labyrinth. Rimuru had hoped to keep this under wraps. Cornered, he spun a story. It's the result of experimenting with Beelzebub's power, he stammered, invoking Raphael's name to cement the lie. With Raphael's guidance, Rimuru explained carefully. Beelzebub's power can convert souls to energy and channel it to those capable of evolving. Only beings with the necessary dispositions can harness it. Before Rimuru could finish, Guy grinned. So that's why you woke multiple demon lords. Impressive. Guy's eyes widened. You're not a normal slime, he declared. You're reincarnated? Rimuru nodded, confirming the story that was already widespread in the West. Guy and Shuna, stunned, asked Rimuru to repeat it. Guy laughed, calling it a bizarre twist of fate to be reborn as a monster. Rimuru's existence wasn't a secret, but apparently Guy hadn't connected the dots. Satisfied, Rimuru tried sending Guy on his way, only for Guy to ask for another piece of cake and, shockingly, request that Rimuru awaken all his subordinates. WTF? Did Guy want to turn everyone into tools? Rimuru hesitated, but Raphael confirmed. Forced evolution could work, even without a soul bond, as long as the subject met the evolutionary criteria and offered no resistance. Still, there was another problem. Rimuru's soul reserves. He had only about 100,000 souls left. Guy inhaled sharply. He'd once given Mizeri 10,000 souls with no effect, but if Rimuru could do it, he'd provide what was needed. Rimuru reminded him, just giving souls doesn't work. Efficiency is only around 10%, and only certain beings can transform souls into usable energy. Named beings like Mizeri and Rain can't awaken on their own because their essence has already shifted. Guy absorbed the explanation and asked, how many souls do you need to awaken Mizeri and Rain? Rimuru braced himself, but Raphael answered first. 500,000 souls. 2 awakened demon lords would require a whopping 500,000 souls. Guy gulped, then chuckled. That much, huh? I've got more than that saved. No need to slay any more humans. Rimuru laughed dryly. Relief, but also a gnawing uncertainty, settled in. Trusting Guy wasn't easy, but at least for now, the risk was averted. In the end, Guy handed over the 500,000 souls without hesitation. Mizeri and Rain were summoned back, and to Rimuru's surprise, the two had already mastered the cake recipe in such a short time. With everything wrapped up and the deal complete, Rimuru politely suggested it was time for Guy and Velzard to head back. He didn't want to showcase his awakening process in front of people like them. However, Guy casually declined the suggestion. He insisted on staying to personally escort Mizeri and Rain home. In other words, he was clearly planning to stick around and observe how Rimuru performed the evolution. And so, one side wanted to show the guests out while the other side firmly planted their feet. Rimuru and Guy exchanged smiles, but under the surface it was a psychological standoff. The room grew tense. Just then, the door burst open. Veldora and Ramirez came barreling in as carefree as ever. They excitedly explained how they had been using Argus, Tempest's high-end surveillance device designed for warfare, to go sightseeing. Despite having lived for eons, neither of them had really explored the world before, so this was a thrilling new experience for them. Of course, Rimuru also wanted to have fun with his friends, but right now, he was dealing with Guy Crimson, the most dangerous being in the world. He was about to scold the pair for being so oblivious to the mood when someone else spoke up before he could. "You look so happy, Veldora-chan." The familiar voice froze Veldora in place. He didn't look delighted, he looked horrified. "What? Why are you here?" It was Velzard, his older sister. Panicking, Veldora made up some excuse and shot Rimuru a pleading look. But Velzard calmly walked over, placed a hand on his shoulder, and suggested they go chat privately in the next room. Rimuru sensed something was very wrong. Veldora clutched Ramirez like a lifeline, begging not to be left alone. That's when it clicked. Rimuru remembered how Veldora had refused to travel north before, claiming it was too cold and something terrifying lived there. That something was clearly Velzard. Watching Veldora cling to the doorframe in desperation, Rimuru decided to intervene. "Veldora, you really don't get along with Velzard, do you?" "Nonsense. There's nothing I can't handle." Classic denial. Velzard then started explaining, with a warm smile no less, that she'd cared for Veldora in the past. When he misbehaved, she'd kill and regenerate him. When that didn't work, she sealed him and gave him long-winded lectures about the truths of the world. It was her version of discipline. Rimuru was floored. No wonder Veldora was traumatized. Velzard never raised her voice, but what she did was 10 times scarier. Rimuru gently tried to explain that maybe her methods were the reason Veldora was so afraid of her. Surprisingly, Velzard seemed to take it to heart. She agreed to talk with Veldora more calmly. Rimuru finally felt confident enough to let them go have that talk in the next room, but Veldora still refused to let go of Ramirez's hand. Just before the door closed, Rimuru faintly heard Ramirez yelling something about how she had nothing to do with this. Then silence. After eyeing Guy warily, Rimuru said he'd prepare rooms for Mizeri, Rain, and Velzard. But Guy raised an eyebrow, asking why there were 3 rooms. Clearly he had no intention of leaving Tempest anytime soon. "No, really, save your stay for another time. We'll give you the best hospitality then, as for tonight." "Didn't you say there are extra rooms?" "I don't mind humble service. I'm not picky." Rimuru was speechless. This man had completely thrown away his pride. With no more excuses left, Rimuru reluctantly told Shuna to prepare the best rooms possible. Guy, satisfied like he'd just won a high-stakes battle, smiled smugly. That's when Diablo jumped in. "So, you're staying tonight, Guy? That gives us plenty of time to chat." "What are you implying, Diablo?" "Oh, nothing much. I've just been curious about that ultimate skill of yours for quite a while. I hope you'll explain it in detail." Seeing Guy caught off guard, Rimuru couldn't help but enjoy it. He quickly ordered Diablo to escort Guy and spend the entire evening catching up. "Wait, hold on a second." No more waiting. And just like that, Guy was whisked away. Rimuru didn't waste a moment. Now that Guy was out of the room, it was safe to begin the evolution ritual for Mizeri and Rain. But as he completed the process, he noticed something strange. 300,000 souls were left over. Rimuru asked Raphael for an explanation. Answer: due to improved mastery, fewer souls were required than initially estimated. That was obviously a cover. Rimuru immediately realized Raphael had bluffed Guy, tricking the world's strongest demon lord out of an extra 300,000 souls. According to Raphael, the leftover souls were strategically acquired for evolving the primordial trio, Testarossa, Ultima, and Carrera, and the rest could be considered compensation. Rimuru froze in horror. If Guy ever found out, Tempest wouldn't survive no matter how many times it was rebuilt. Trying to calm his nerves, Rimuru decided to throw a banquet that night. Guy showed up looking exhausted, like his life force had been drained. Still, he graciously thanked Rimuru for evolving Mizeri and Rain. Diablo, on the other hand, was glowing with energy, beaming, smug, and fully recharged. Rimuru couldn't believe it. Had Guy really gone through all that? After the banquet, everyone's mood lifted. Guy soaked in the hot springs and seemed genuinely relaxed. Velzard was also impressed. Hot springs were a rare luxury in the frozen northern continent, and she promised to return soon for more and to visit her brother often. How's Veldora holding up? Well, he got dragged into the labyrinth and beat down pretty badly. He can barely walk. Gahaha, tell my sister I went easy on her this time, but I won't next time. Should I really pass that on? Never mind. Rimuru finally understood. Prideful people really do die early. This was also the first time he saw Veldora completely wrecked. Proof of just how terrifying Velzard and the True Dragons in general really were. And with that, Rimuru's eventful encounter with Guy and Velzard came to a close. Thanks for tuning in, and see you in the next video from AniMonolith.